Okay, this video is going to cover the VantEdge VTM Edgebander that we have in stock, but everything starts with the glue pot, so we thought we'd show you the glue pot out of the machine. Here's a typical VantEdge VTM glue pot. Here's the shoe. That's where the panel rides along as it approaches that glue roller. And this is a key spot here. If you don't have this adjusted correctly, everything else isn't going to work well. So what we want is we want the panel to come through and barely kiss that roller. If it misses the roller completely, we're going to have to apply too much glue to the roller in order for it to touch the panel. And if it's grinding really hard into the roller, it's going to have a tendency to want to bump that panel as it comes through. So take a straight edge and just make sure that we're barely kissing that roller. So you can see here, it's hitting the roller too hard for my liking. So I'm going to take this 10mm wrench, going to unlock the locking nut here, and then we're just going to take an Allen key and just turn that Allen bolt and push that shoe out just ever so slightly. You can almost see that here as we push that out a little bit. And we can recheck with our straight edge once again. And when you got it where you like it, just lock down that locking nut with the 10mm wrench. And that's it. Okay, we've got our glue pot back in the machine. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to watch how quick this quick change glue pot really is. It's just a couple of minutes and 4 bolts. But here we're going to put in our 280/90 from Jowat. This is the glue we're going to use today. We're going to fill up this glue pot. Actually, we're going to go about halfway. You don't want to fill up. You don't need to have too much glue in there. You can see that looks good. We'll push some of that in there. A 280/90 is a really good glue. It's a clearer, translucent type of glue. So I like that. Just does a really good job with a nice tight glue line. It's got a strong bond. And it's just a good overall general purpose glue. Okay, here is our VTM 3.5 VantEdge Edgebander, our 280/90 Jowat glue, our XE4 finishing agent from SNX. We'll talk more about that later. And in an earlier video, we went through how to set up the air system, how to tape our joints with Teflon tape, and you can see all that in another video. Here we just connected the power. It's single phase, so it's just a couple of wires and a ground, and there's no issue with direction. And once you're powered up, simply turn it on and turn on the lights. We have really great overhead lights. Make everything nice and bright so you can see what's going on, see what you're doing in there if you ever have to make any adjustments or add some glue. So love having those lights. Here's the toolbox that comes with the machine. And really easy to hook up dust collection. It's just a single 4-inch port. Really simple, I like that. So they've designed that so that all the manifolds go straight down to that one section. Here's our bottle for our XE4 finishing agent fluids. And we will go through and show you how to prime those misters a little bit later. Go ahead and open up the hood. Take one last look at our glue here. That's going to start heating up. And then we'll be ready to start running this machine and do some initial tests. Okay, now we're going to grab that XE4 finishing agent from SNX Technologies. This is one of their liquids they offer. We do offer this. You can buy it directly from ProTech Machinery or set you up on a recurring delivery setup. And this is great for those misters right before the buffing and flat scraping. And we do sell in larger quantities if you're going to be using this on a daily basis in high production. And a pro tip, you can actually keep some of this on hand. And if you buy the XE4 wipes, it's great to use some of this liquid to refresh those wipes because they will tend to dry out, especially if you leave the lid open because of the high alcohol content. That's how we get that streak-free wipe on the panels. Especially when you're doing those panels, you don't want any smudges, fingerprints, anything on those. You can use an XE4 wipe, get your panels extra clean, and use some of your finishing agent fluid to refresh those wipe canisters. And don't spill a little bit like I did trying to hold a camera while you're doing it. Okay, we'll put that back together, and now we're ready to prime the system. Okay, this is the temperature that we're at currently, 130, and our set point is 180. So we're getting up to temp right now. And as a safety measure, the control basically locks out most of the major functions. We can't try to turn on the track or the glue roller because the glue is not melted yet. It's not up to the appropriate temperature. So we'll come back to that in a bit. The features I love on this machine is the manual control page. So all these major functions of the machine, we can manually turn them on and off without having to run a panel. So you can hear the misters turning on and off. The only problem is if you're only one person, I can't hold the button down, run the misters, and then at the same time go down there and look at what's happening and if we've finished our priming. So I have a pro tip for you. A secret button that we'll find that'll turn the misters on. So right below the misting system are some solenoids. We come behind this dust hose and we hit that red button. We can manually run the misters without having to be at the touchscreen. So now we're going to wrap some cardboard. We're going to put it in between the two misters. And then we'll just run those misters for a few minutes until we see cleaner coming out of both misters. And then we can adjust the flow to whatever we prefer for how much liquid we want to be putting on the panel. Okay, there's usually a little bit of residue, a little bit of oil in the lines. So what I'm going to do is continue to flush that until we get the actual cleaning agent. It'll feel different. There won't be any oily residue feel when you rub that liquid. And you'll also smell the cleaner. The cleaner has a distinct smell. So when we have cleaner running out of both nozzles, then we can adjust the flow accordingly, and then we're good to go. And here we're just speeding up through this a little bit just for the sake of time. But like I said, just a few minutes of this until we get those misters nice and flowing, and then you're good to go. Okay, so you're about to see right here on the cardboard this nice pattern, a nice larger circle area where those misters are visibly spitting out the cleaner. And once we've got both misters doing that, then we can clean up the excess and we're done. Okay, we're going to take one last look. Nice and melted. Looks like all those pellets are pretty much melted in there. And we're up to temp. So what we can do now is close this hood. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the feed track. And when I turn on the feed track, that's also going to engage the glue system and turn on the glue roller. And I usually let this run for a few minutes just to make sure that glue roller is coated with all that fresh new glue. Now, on the VantEdge 3.5, we do have 3 speeds, low, medium, and high. You can run at any speed you like. I usually prefer low or medium. And if I'm in a hurry, I can go a little faster. But I think the tooling gives you the best quality when you're running at low or medium speed. Okay, now we're going to adjust for our panel thickness. On the 3.5, that is a manual setup. Sometimes I prefer this manual crank. It's really simple and straightforward, and you can't really mess it up. We're going to take this to 19 millimeters. And there we go. Perfect. Okay, let's set up some tape. Let's start with 2 millimeter. We've got some 2 millimeter flex edge from Rayhow. If you're going to run any 2 or 3 millimeter in your shop, you definitely want to get introduced to Rayhow. we can hook you up. It's the best quality tape we found, and their flex edge just cuts like butter on these machines. Much better than really old 3mm super rigid rock hard plastic PVC. So just a couple of adjustments to make. The factory is set at 3mm, so we're going to take that, and that's for the tape thickness. Going to take that knob down to 2. Nothing to do on the front and rear end trim. And then right over here on the top and bottom finish, again, take those from 3.0 down to 2.0. And that's really the only adjustments we're going to make to test this first panel, first time we've run anything through this machine. We're going to run through how to load up some tape for the first time. So here is our tape feed section. And this first little adjustment here, you want to make sure that you have clearance, that you're not obstructed, that you can easily move that tape underneath that bar. But that's just going to give us a general hold down on that tape so it's not wanting to walk on us or flip up on us. That's the first section. And then over here we have another adjustment, same kind of thing. We want enough room for this tape to go in and out smoothly and not get caught up, but also keep it down as far as possible on that tape without obstructing the movement. Okay, and over here on the left, you see this? I believe it's a 5mm T-handle Allen. That's a little tiny shoe that you can adjust and move forward or back depending on your tape thickness. And so we want to leave, again, enough room for the tape to get through, but we can also keep it from wanting to move around on us. And just all these nice little helpful adjustments that VTM allows for us. Now here's where that guillotine is. When we load up our tape, we're going to put it right to the edge of that guillotine. You don't want to go too far. It'll end up getting caught and bending over your panel. But right there at that guillotine, that's the proper spot you want to be. Okay, and right here, that knob right there adjusts our glue amount on our glue roller. We'll adjust that later. And then right here, you want to make sure this is on. If you don't have that on, it's probably not going to feed the tape. That puts pressure against that tape feed roller and allows that tape to move. So make sure you press that knob in there and that's engaged before you start. Okay, we'll go ahead and close that door, come over here to our touch screen, and we're just going to turn on the first 2 stations and our panel warmer. The track, of course, is on, and then our end trimming and top and bottom trimming. We're not going to do the flat scraping yet because we want to make sure we tune this in 1 station at a time so we can see exactly what's happening to the panel. Okay, I think we're ready to run our first panel. I've got a couple of pieces of melamine that have been sitting around the shop for a few months, but a couple of raw edges left, so we're going to go ahead and use this as our first test run and see where we're at. Here's a quick look at that first panel. So definitely took off too much with that top and bottom flush trimmer, but that's okay. We can make a simple adjustment and try it again. Okay, with that adjusted, we can now try all our stations. So we're going to turn on the flat scraping and the buffing in addition to the other stations. And we are ready to give this a shot. You can even hear the misters go on as we put on some of that XE4 liquid from SNX Technologies. And now that panel comes out with our latest adjustments. Let's take a look. Top and bottom are good, nice and smooth. Maybe just a little bit too much glue. We can turn the glue down just slightly. But otherwise, I think we have both the flat scraper and the top and bottom all tuned up right where we need to be. Okay, we had a little bit of glue residue showing up on the panel, so we're going to turn down just a 1/4 turn, just a slight adjustment on that glue. And we're going to go ahead and run another panel, turn all of our stations back on. Got another raw edge left. And here we go. And this time we'll go ahead and take you along for the ride. You can see it come here through the tape and glue station, the guillotine, front and rear end trim, top and bottom flush trim, some misting fluids, the flat scrapers, and the buffing wheels are currently off. Again, I had some old panels hanging around. This one has the VantEdge and the ProTech Machinery logo on it. It is MDF, so we're going to give this a shot and see if we need to make any final adjustments. Okay, this was our last panel we had laying around the shop. Again, we were using really old panels that have been sitting around. So my buddy next door, Daniel, he works over at the Closet Doctor. They've got an Anderson Select CNC router and a VTM 6.0 Edgebander that they purchased from ProTech Machinery. And he saved the day and was able to provide me with a couple of freshly cut CNC quality panels. And we jumped down to our cherry 0.5 millimeter tape. And we're going to go ahead and run that through the machine now. And we'll grab this panel, we'll walk it over to the table here and see if we can get a good shot with the camera and show you what this edge quality looks like. Sometimes you just kind of have to be at the machine to feel and see the quality of tape we're getting through this machine now. But that is very, very smooth, very clean. I like the profile we've got. The bottom of it is even cleaner than the top. That requires no touch-up, straight off the machine. Let me see if I can zoom in here. Yeah, there we go. Now we can see the dimples on the melamine. And you just don't get a tighter glue line than that right there. Really smooth, really clean, nice and flush. Right where we want it to be. I'm really liking that. I don't think there's any more adjustments we'll want to make at this point. I think we are ready to run. Seeing a tiny bit of glue residue. I can probably bring that flat scraper on the top down just a hair, or maybe dial back the glue one more time. But other than that, the profile looks clean, feels clean. Excellent, excellent quality. I'm very happy where this machine's at. Okay, this VantEdge VTM 3.5 Edgebander is now ready. It's dialed in. We finished our last couple of fine-tune adjustments. I'm going to show you those right now. But just a reminder, this machine is available for immediate purchase. So shoot us a text, email, give us a call, and we'd love to get you a quote on this machine. It is ready to go. So up front, we saw earlier those initial adjustments depending on the tape you're using. There's some tape adjustments, a shoe down here. All that gets you dialed in so that that tape sits in there nicely. We didn't mention this earlier. I've got it on really low right now, but this is great, especially for your thinner tapes. And it's got a nice, easy adjustment knob. You can crank that up. That just blows a little bit of cool air on that tape, which is sitting on top of your glue pot. So it keeps that thinner tape from warping or distorting, especially if you're going to be letting it sit here for a few minutes. So that's a great little addition. And didn't have to make any adjustments up here. All this worked right out of the box. From the factory, the glue temperature was set at 180. I looked at my glue temp for the 280/90 we're running, and they recommend 190 to 210. So I just set that at 194. So that was one minor adjustment I made. Didn't touch anything on the front and rear end trim. And then we've got our top and bottom finish trim. So I did make a small adjustment here. So if you look right here, and it's super simple, there's a 16mm locking nut right here. So I loosened that up and then cranked this just maybe a half a turn. That dials in your top and bottom adjustment. So it was taking off just a little bit too much material. Cranked this down, take off a little less, and that was perfect. I did the same thing on the bottom. It literally took about 5 minutes, a couple of panels to test, and we were good to go. And then of course I can dial in real easily if I'm changing tape thickness or I want a little bit more of a profile, a little bit more radius. I can adjust that here easily. And then the last thing right here was our flat scrapers. Right after our misters, and you saw us priming those earlier. But the flat scraper, it's really simple. It's an insert tool with four-sided blade right here. And so those will last a long time. You've got the one on the top and the one on the bottom. To adjust those, it's super simple. It's the same tool, but it's the 13 instead of the 16. And you simply, right here, clockwise to take off less material and counterclockwise to take off more. That basically just raises and lowers this blade, and you can actually see that when you're cranking on it, so you can double check your position. So these are just sitting just above the copy wheels, and we're taking off too much of the panel. We don't really want it to take off any material. We just want it to kiss the panel, remove a little bit of residue or anything that might get stuck on the top of the panel, just as a last final touch. So that's what those flat scrapers are going to do. And right now those are working perfectly. We've got the buffing, didn't have to touch those. And so now we're producing a really, really nice panel. So again, we'd love to show you this machine in person. We can run some material, run some tape. We've got 1 mil, half mil, 2 mil, and we'll make it happen. Thanks for watching.